Have you ever wondered why some people seem to attract wealth effortlessly, as if the universe conspires to deliver abundance directly into their hands? What if I told you that those lucky lottery winners you hear about aren't lucky at all, but rather masters of a hidden manifestation formula so powerful that it was deliberately kept secret from the masses? You're here right now because something deep within you already knows the truth. Your own imagination has guided you to this revelation, whispering that unexpected wealth isn't just a fantasy, it's closer than you've ever believed possible. Has this ever happened to you? That inexplicable feeling that you're on the verge of discovering something that could transform your financial reality overnight? But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Stay with me, because what you're about to learn today might forever change your relationship with money. Florence Scovel Shinn, the renowned spiritual teacher and metaphysical author, once revealed a manifestation technique so potent, so immediate in its effects, that she rarely spoke of it twice. This wasn't because she wanted to keep prosperity from reaching others, but because she understood that this knowledge carried transformative potential that many weren't prepared to handle responsibly. What many dismiss as random chance or blind luck is actually the result of deliberate manifestation techniques. Techniques that operate according to spiritual laws as consistent as gravity. The difference between those who manifest unexpected windfalls and those who struggle financially isn't about worthiness or even hard work. It's about understanding the invisible mechanics of manifestation that Florence uncovered nearly a century ago. There are no accidents in the spiritual world. Your presence here, watching this video, is evidence that something within you recognizes this truth. The fact that you found this teaching suggests that miraculous wealth is already within your reach, waiting only for you to apply the formula that Florence guarded so carefully. What you'll discover today isn't about vague affirmations or wishful thinking. It's about a specific application of imagination that bypasses the conscious mind and speaks directly to the subconscious, the true creator of your external reality. Now, imagine yourself seated in one of Florence's private lectures in the late 1950s. The room is hushed, the air charged with anticipation. For a brief, extraordinary moment, Florence steps away from her usual spiritual teachings to share something she rarely discusses, a precise formula for manifesting sudden, unexpected wealth. The audience leans forward, sensing they're about to receive something precious. If you found value in these manifestation teachings, hit that subscribe button to join our community of conscious creators. Each video explores another hidden aspect of Florence's powerful techniques. In that hushed room, Florence revealed something that most spiritual teachers carefully avoid: a direct, practical pathway to material abundance. What she shared wasn't another set of vague affirmations or generic visualizations. This was something altogether different, a precise, actionable formula designed specifically for manifesting unexpected financial abundance through deliberate imagination work. The revelation sent ripples through the room. Some shifted uncomfortably, as if hearing something forbidden. Others leaned forward, recognizing the profound, hidden truth being unveiled before them. Because unlike the surface-level manifestation techniques commonly taught, this approach bypassed the usual mental resistance and spoke directly to the creative center of consciousness. The journey to financial transformation begins with understanding a fundamental principle. Your mindset about money isn't just a passive reflection of your reality, it's the active creator of it. Florence understood this decades before modern neuroscience confirmed how our beliefs literally shape our perception of what's possible. The decisions you make about what you can or cannot have financially aren't simply reactions to your circumstances. They're the architects of those very circumstances. What makes this formula so revolutionary is its precision. It doesn't rely on endless positive thinking or vague hopes for a better future. Instead, it offers a specific mental protocol, a deliberate sequence that, when followed exactly, creates an impact far beyond what conventional wisdom suggests is possible. It's as if Florence discovered a backdoor into the manifestation process, a way to speak directly to the universe's abundance without the usual delays and obstacles. This knowledge has the potential to transform not just your financial situation, but your entire understanding of how wealth operates and how you can attract it through conscious creation. The revelations contained within this formula illuminate why some people seem to effortlessly attract money, while others struggle despite working twice as hard. It's not about luck or privilege. It's about understanding the hidden mechanics of manifestation. Behind the scenes of every lucky lottery win or unexpected inheritance lies this same principle at work, whether the person knew they were applying it or not. What Florence did was codify this process, making it accessible to anyone willing to apply it consistently. Now, I want to go even deeper into this formula to show you exactly how Florence instructed her students to use it step by step. This isn't just theoretical knowledge, but a practical pathway that has transformed countless lives. The mindset shift required is subtle yet profound, moving from hoping and wishing to a state of absolute knowing. As you begin to grasp the implications of what I'm sharing, you might feel a strange sense of recognition, as if you've always known this truth on some level, waiting for the right moment to fully embrace it. If this resonates with you, write in the comments, "I recognize this truth," because acknowledgement is the first step in this remarkable journey we're taking together. What makes this formula so intriguing is the mysterious way it came to light. During a lecture in the late 1950s, Florence Scovel Shinn did something extraordinary, something completely out of character for a spiritual teacher of her caliber. The audience that evening witnessed a rare moment of candor about specific material manifestation when Florence briefly stepped outside her usual spiritual teachings to share this powerful money manifestation technique. The atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. Those present described a palpable intensity as Florence began speaking directly about something she typically veiled in metaphor and scripture, the deliberate manifestation of sudden financial abundance. It was as if she momentarily lifted the veil between the spiritual and material worlds, revealing the exact mechanism by which one influences the other. But what happened next is perhaps even more revealing. Mid-explanation, Florence seemed to catch herself. She paused, looked across the room as if taking internal inventory, and then swiftly changed topics. She retreated back to safer spiritual ground, returning to her more general principles about divine law and spiritual alignment. Those who witnessed this moment often described it as if Florence suddenly realized she had shared too much, had revealed a sacred key that perhaps not everyone was ready to receive. This pattern of revelation and retreat speaks volumes about the profound nature of what she disclosed. In this remarkable lecture, Florence directly addressed wealth manifestation and even lottery wins, then quickly pivoted away, understanding that not everyone was prepared for such direct knowledge about material manifestation. It was as if she recognized the tremendous responsibility that comes with wielding such powerful creative forces. The psychology behind her hesitation reveals something important about the journey of manifestation. Financial abundance, when it arrives suddenly, creates a profound inner transformation that many aren't prepared to navigate. Behind the scenes of every overnight success is a person grappling with a completely new identity and relationship with abundance. Florence understood this deeper dimension of manifestation, that the outer revelation must be matched by inner evolution. Ready to continue this journey of discovery? Subscribe now to access our full library of manifestation secrets that Florence Scovel Shinn shared only with her closest students. What makes her approach different? From modern manifestation techniques is its acknowledgement of this shadow side, the inner revelations and reckonings that accompany sudden prosperity. She didn't just teach the mechanics of manifestation, but prepared her students for the profound identity shift that true abundance requires. The question becomes, why would a spiritual teacher who dedicated her life to helping others find fulfillment, be so cautious about sharing a formula for financial abundance? The answer illuminates the true power of what she revealed. Let's explore exactly what Florence shared in that brief window of candor, and why she felt it necessary to guard this knowledge so carefully. If you've ever sensed that there's a hidden key to abundance that most teachers won't reveal, type in the comments, "Show me the key," because acknowledging your readiness is the first step toward receiving this guarded wisdom. The real revelation comes when we understand why Florence was so protective of this knowledge. Her hesitation wasn't born from a desire to gatekeep prosperity or maintain some spiritual hierarchy. Rather, she recognized a profound truth about human nature, that many seek money without comprehending its spiritual significance as merely one expression of divine abundance. Her caution came from wisdom, not restriction. Florence witnessed countless spiritual seekers who approached manifestation with fragmented consciousness, wanting the material results without embracing the spiritual. Transformation required. The journey to mastery demands an integration of both worlds, a recognition that the visible and invisible realms are not separate, but perfectly interconnected. This paradigm shift often creates resistance in those not prepared to expand their perception beyond conventional boundaries. Behind the scenes of Florence's teaching methodology was a profound understanding of the psychology of wealth. She knew that quantum leaps in financial abundance often trigger identity crises in those who haven't prepared their consciousness to receive. The breakthrough comes not from focusing on the external outcome, but from cultivating the internal state that naturally magnetizes prosperity. What Florence revealed in that rare moment of transparency was revolutionary. Wealth exists first as a state of being. It's not something you chase or pursue, it's something you embody. The fundamental principle is disarmingly simple, yet profoundly powerful. When you can genuinely feel the reality of having received your desire, the outer world must rearrange itself to match this inner conviction. This is not metaphorical or poetic language. It's a precise description of how consciousness interfaces with reality. The mindset required for this work transcends conventional positive thinking. It's not about affirming what you want to happen someday. It's about experiencing what is already true in a higher dimension of awareness. Florence taught that the mechanism of manifestation operates through feeling, not thinking. The emotional landscape you inhabit is the blueprint from which your material reality is constructed. What makes this approach different from other manifestation frameworks is its emphasis on present moment embodiment rather than future projection. Most approaches position abundance as something to be attained through effort or strategy. Florence's revelation turned this model inside out, suggesting that abundance is your natural state. You're simply removing the barriers to its expression. The catalyst for transformation comes when you recognize that manifesting isn't about creating something new, but about revealing what already exists in potential form. This revelation shifts your relationship with reality itself, positioning you not as a beggar hoping for prosperity, but as a conscious participant in its unfoldment. The entire spectrum of possibility opens when you operate from this enlightened perspective. Let me reveal exactly what Florence taught about the specific practice that activates this state of consciousness. If you're ready to move beyond theory into practical application, type in the comments, "I'm ready to practice," because acknowledging your readiness aligns your consciousness with the teaching that follows. At the heart of manifestation, failure lies a pattern so common that Florence could predict it with remarkable accuracy. The problem, she discovered, is not the desire for money itself. It's the doubt that inevitably follows the initial imaginative act. This insight reveals a critical blind spot in the spiritual journey of most seekers. They perform their visualization once, perhaps twice, generating a momentary feeling of possibility. But then, like clockwork, the momentum collapses as doubt creeps in. The psychology behind this pattern is fascinating. Many seekers sabotage their manifestations by allowing skepticism to enter immediately after their imaginative work. They look around at unchanging circumstances and declare, It didn't work, not realizing they've just created exactly that reality through their negative assumption. This mental reversal effectively cancels the original creative impulse before it has time to germinate in the field of possibility. What makes Florence's approach revolutionary is her understanding of the subconscious mind's operating system. She recognized that our deeper mind doesn't distinguish between what's physically happening and what's vividly imagined with feeling. This revelation transforms the entire manifestation process from wishing to commanding, from hoping to knowing. The breakthrough comes through what Florence described as a secret use of imagination, not as hoping for a future event, but as remembering a completed experience. This subtle yet profound shift changes everything. The critical distinction in this practice is approaching imagination not as wishful thinking about what might happen, but as experiencing a memory that feels completely real and present to the subconscious mind. Think about how differently you approach remembering versus wishing. When you remember, there's a natural confidence, an embodied knowing that requires no effort or strain. The event has a solidity in your consciousness. It's done, complete, certain. This is precisely the quality of consciousness that manifestation requires. The mindset transformation necessary for this work involves recognizing that the subconscious only responds to the present feeling of reality, not to intellectual concepts, not to future projections, not to verbal affirmations without feeling. It's the emotional signature of completion that catalyzes the manifestation process. When you enter the state of having already received, you activate forces beyond conventional understanding. What happens behind the scenes of consciousness when you engage in this practice is remarkable. Your nervous system begins responding to your imagined reality as though it were physically present. Your brain chemistry shifts, your energetic field reorganizes, and most importantly, your subconscious, the bridge between your individual consciousness and universal creative forces, accepts the imagined state as instruction for what must now be manifested. Let me share exactly how Florence instructed her students to implement this understanding through a specific nighttime practice. The revelations contained in this technique illuminate why the hours before sleep represent the most powerful manifestation window available to human consciousness. If this approach to imagination, as remembering rather than hoping, resonates with you, write in the comments, "I remember abundance," because claiming this state of consciousness activates the very forces we're discussing. Florence illustrated this principle through the remarkable story of one of her students, a man who applied this technique with such precision that it forever changed Florence's approach to teaching manifestation. What made his practice unique wasn't elaborate visualization or complex rituals. It was his intuitive understanding of emotional resonance. This practitioner didn't focus on the mechanics of winning. He didn't visualize picking numbers, purchasing tickets, or even the moment of checking results. Instead, he lived entirely within the emotional reality of the accomplished goal, experiencing the satisfaction and celebration of the fulfilled desire. He immersed himself completely in the feeling of having already won. The distinction here reveals a profound insight about the architecture of reality. Most manifestation attempts fail because they fixate on the process rather than the end point. The hidden truth Florence discovered is that consciousness responds not to procedural details, but to emotional completion. When you enter the feeling state of already possessing what you desire, you create a resonance pattern that reality must eventually match. What makes this approach transformative is its impact on your entire being, not just your thoughts. The student reported that during his practice, he could feel his body responding as if the win had already occurred. His heartbeat quickened, his chest expanded with joy, his face naturally formed a smile. These physiological responses weren't fabricated. They were the natural outcome of entering a completed state of consciousness. Each night, this man slept in the mood of victory. This timing wasn't coincidental, but strategic. Florence taught that the moments before sleep represent a unique threshold in consciousness, a gateway where the critical, analytical mind relaxes its guard and direct communication with the subconscious becomes possible. By maintaining the emotional state of fulfillment before sleep, this individual allowed his subconscious mind to accept the new reality, which eventually manifested through seemingly random lottery numbers aligning perfectly. The journey from imagination to manifestation wasn't instant, but it was inevitable. Behind the scenes of his outer experience, powerful forces were reorganizing circumstances, connections, and possibilities to match his internal state. What appeared as lucky numbers to the outside world was actually the perfect culmination of a precisely executed consciousness exercise. The mindset revelation here transforms our entire understanding of manifestation. It's not about convincing the universe to give you something you lack. It's about aligning with a version of reality where you already have it. This paradigm shift changes everything about how you approach creation. Instead of begging or pleading from a position of lack, you're simply stepping into an existing state of fulfillment. What happens in the quantum field when you engage in this practice? Recent discoveries in quantum physics suggest that consciousness itself may be a fundamental force, not just an emergent property of the brain, but a field that interfaces directly with the fabric of reality. Through this lens, Florence's teaching represents not just spiritual wisdom, but an advanced understanding of how consciousness shapes matter. Let me explain exactly how this student structured his nighttime practice to achieve such remarkable results. The strategic decisions he made in crafting his imaginal scene reveal why most manifestation attempts fall short of this level of effectiveness. If you've ever felt the emotional difference between hoping for something and knowing it's already yours, type in the comments, "I know it's already mine." Because acknowledging this distinction is the first step toward mastering Florence's method. The essence of Florence's teaching crystallizes into one powerful directive. Create the end result in your mind, and the means will arrive on their own. This core principle fundamentally inverts how most people approach manifestation. Instead of fixating on the how, the precise pathways, strategies, or actions required to achieve your desire, you focus exclusively on the completed state. When this internal shift is accomplished genuinely, the external bridges to that reality, whether lottery, inheritance, business opportunity, or unexpected windfall, will appear naturally, often in ways you could never have strategized or planned. This approach represents a radical surrender of control that paradoxically grants you greater creative power. The transformation happens when you release your grip on the process and instead occupy the consciousness of completion. Behind the scenes of manifestation, the universal intelligence orchestrates circumstances far more elegantly than your analytical mind ever could. This intelligence speaks the language of emotional resonance, not logical planning. The breakthrough that Florence's student experienced came through his intuitive understanding of this principle. He didn't waste energy trying to figure out which numbers to play or which lottery to enter. He simply lived in the emotional reality of having already won, trusting that the physical pathways would reveal themselves, which they did, with mathematical precision. What truly distinguishes Florence's method from other manifestation approaches is her emphasis on the pre-sleep state. This is the part of her teaching she rarely mentioned again in public lectures, because it sounds like magic to those who don't understand the mechanics of consciousness. The pre-sleep state represents a critical window when the conscious and subconscious minds meet, allowing for powerful imprinting of new beliefs without the usual resistance of the analytical mind. Modern neuroscience has caught up with what Florence knew intuitively: the transitional state between wakefulness and sleep, known as the hypnagogic state, is characterized by theta brainwaves that create heightened suggestibility. In this receptive state, the barriers between conscious intention and subconscious acceptance temporarily dissolve, creating the perfect conditions for re-imprinting your belief system. The mindset shift that occurs in this twilight consciousness bypasses the usual skepticism and doubt that sabotage daytime affirmations or visualizations. Your journey into manifestation mastery begins when you recognize that this seemingly magical technique actually operates according to precise spiritual law, as consistent and reliable as gravity once you understand its mechanics. What makes this approach revolutionary is its recognition that manifestation is not about convincing yourself of something unbelievable, but about aligning with what is already true on a higher plane of reality. The pre-sleep state allows you to access this dimensional shift naturally, without struggle or strain. Your consciousness simply slides into alignment with the version of reality where your desire is already fulfilled. Now, I want to reveal exactly how Florence instructed her students to structure their pre-sleep practice for maximum effectiveness. The specific guidance she provided about sensory engagement transforms this from a merely intellectual exercise into a full-body, multidimensional experience that literally rewires your neural pathways. If you've ever noticed that the moments before sleep have a different quality of consciousness, a heightened receptivity, type in the comments, "The gateway is open." Because acknowledging this transitional state is the first step toward harnessing its creative power. Florence often illustrated her teachings through the extraordinary experiences of her students, and one story in particular reveals the practical application of her method. This account involves a student who approached her after a lecture, confessing his desire to manifest a sudden financial windfall. What distinguished this seeker wasn't desperation or greed, but a genuine curiosity about the limits of manifestation. He wanted to put Florence's teaching to the ultimate test, not to prove it wrong, but to prove it right in the most dramatic way possible. Unlike most who approach wealth manifestation from a place of lack or need, this student approached it with calm confidence and authentic belief. This distinction in starting point created a completely different energetic foundation for his practice. The psychology behind successful manifestation begins with this crucial mindset shift, moving from wanting to knowing, from seeking to claiming. Florence provided him with specific instructions that few spiritual teachers would dare share. Each night before sleep, she told him to enter what she poetically called the bridge of dreams, that liminal space between wakefulness and slumber, where consciousness becomes uniquely receptive and malleable. In this twilight state, when the analytical mind begins to surrender its grip, the student mentally lived within the completed manifestation, experiencing the feelings and sensations of having already received the lottery winnings. What makes this approach transformative is its multidimensional nature. He didn't simply picture the outcome, he inhabited it completely. In this twilight state between wakefulness and sleep, the boundaries between imagination and reality naturally soften. The student reported feeling the actual weight of the winning ticket in his hands, hearing the specific congratulatory words from friends and family, and experiencing the emotional release of financial freedom washing through his body. The breakthrough insight here reveals why most visualization practices fail to produce tangible results. Most people approach manifestation as a purely mental exercise, keeping a safe observational distance from the experience they're trying to create. This student, under Florence's guidance, completely dissolved the barrier between observer and experience, becoming both the creator and the recipient of the manifestation simultaneously. Each night, as his body relaxed and his mind drifted towards sleep, he allowed himself to sink deeper into this reality where the winning had already occurred. He didn't fight for the feeling or strain to maintain it. Instead, he surrendered to it with the same effortlessness with which we recall a vivid memory. This quality of natural ease is the hallmark of effective manifestation work, the absence of struggle signaling alignment with what already exists in potential form. The journey from consciousness to manifestation requires this period of gestation in the subconscious mind. Florence understood what modern neuroscience now confirms, that the brain processes and integrates experiences during sleep, consolidating them into our working model of reality. By entering sleep while holding the emotional signature of fulfilled desire, this student was literally reprogramming his consciousness at the deepest level. If you've ever noticed how different your consciousness feels in those drowsy moments before sleep, how much more receptive and fluid your mind becomes, type in the comments, "I know the bridge," because recognizing this unique state of awareness is your first step toward mastering Florence's powerful pre-sleep manifestation technique. What sets apart ordinary visualization from Florence's manifestation technique is the extraordinary level of sensory detail her student incorporated into his practice. He didn't merely picture a winning ticket, he constructed a complete sensory experience that fooled his nervous system into responding as if the event were physically happening. The practitioner incorporated rich sensory details into his imaginative scene, feeling the actual physical sensation of the winning ticket against his fingertips, the crisp paper, the slight weight, the texture beneath his hands. This multisensory immersion extended to his auditory experience as well. He didn't vaguely imagine people being happy for him. He heard specific congratulatory phrases in the distinct voices of friends and family. "You did it! I knew you would win!" These weren't generic sounds, but personalized expressions that carried emotional resonance, making the experience dimensionally real to his subconscious mind. The transformation occurs when imagination shifts from abstract visualization to embodied experience. Modern neuroscience reveals that the brain processes imagined sensory experiences in nearly identical regions as actual physical sensations. When you engage all your senses in your imaginative work, you create neural pathways that mirror those formed by physical experience. This neurological insight reveals the hidden mechanism behind Florence's seemingly mystical teaching. Behind the scenes of this process is a profound psychological principle. The subconscious mind cannot distinguish between vividly imagined experiences and physical reality when the emotional signature is identical. By creating an internally coherent sensory experience, complete with physical sensations, sounds, and emotional responses, this student effectively bypassed the critical faculty of his conscious mind and spoke directly to the creative center of his subconscious. What's particularly revealing about Florence's approach is her purpose in sharing this lottery manifestation example. She didn't present it to glorify material wealth or promote financial fixation. The purpose behind sharing this story wasn't to emphasize money itself, but to provide tangible, undeniable proof that our imaginal acts, when properly executed, inevitably manifest in physical reality. The lottery simply served as the perfect demonstration vehicle, concrete, measurable, and seemingly impossible by conventional standards. The revelation here transforms our understanding of manifestation itself. Florence was demonstrating a universal principle that operates with mathematical precision. Imagination, once fully assumed as real at the subconscious level, must harden into fact. This isn't metaphorical language or spiritual poetry. It's a precise description of how consciousness interfaces with the quantum field to restructure physical reality. The journey from imagination to manifestation follows a consistent pattern that Florence observed repeatedly in her practice. First comes the vivid, sensory-rich imaginal act. Then, a period of gestation where the subconscious accepts and processes the new pattern. Finally, the bridge of incidents, those seemingly random occurrences that lead to the physical manifestation of the imagined state. What made this particular student's experience so compelling was the dramatic nature of the manifestation. When lottery numbers aligned exactly with his selection, it eliminated any possibility of coincidence or confirmation bias. It provided irrefutable evidence that consciousness directly shapes reality when properly directed. If you've experienced even small moments where your imagination seemed to precede reality, where something you vividly pictured actually happened, type in the comments, "My imagination creates reality." Because acknowledging these experiences, however small, opens the doorway to mastering this principle on a larger scale. What's particularly revealing about Florence's approach was her reluctance to dwell on this teaching after sharing it. As her student's story reached its climactic conclusion, the moment where the impossible became undeniable reality, Florence did something unexpected. She quickly moved beyond This example, shifting the conversation back to broader spiritual principles. This wasn't accidental, but deliberate, almost as if she feared her audience would chase money alone and miss the deeper spiritual treasure hidden within this demonstration. This hesitation reveals a profound insight about Florence's understanding of the manifestation journey. She recognized a pattern in spiritual seekers that still persists today: the tendency to fixate on material outcomes while overlooking the consciousness transformation that makes those outcomes possible. Behind the scenes of her teaching methodology was a careful balance between providing tangible evidence of these principles while preventing attachment to specific material expressions. The revelation that transforms your entire approach to manifestation comes when you understand that the lottery is only a symbol. It's not about the ticket, the numbers, or even the money itself. The specific manifestation of lottery winnings is merely one expression of the universal law that governs all creation. The real power lies in the consciousness that generates all manifestations, not in any particular outcome. This paradigm shift completely reorients your relationship with manifestation practice. Rather than chasing external circumstances, whether money, relationships, or health, you recognize that these are simply different expressions of the same unified field responding to your state of consciousness. The breakthrough occurs when you make the decision to focus on cultivating the state rather than acquiring the thing. The mindset required for this level of manifestation transcends conventional goal-setting psychology. It's not about visualizing what you want to have someday. It's about embodying what you already are in a higher dimension of awareness. Florence understood that when you attain the correct state of consciousness, the external expressions of that state appear automatically, without struggle or strain. What makes this approach revolutionary is its inversion of the manifestation sequence most commonly taught. Rather than setting intentions that you hope will eventually materialize, you enter the consciousness where the intention is already fulfilled. This subtle but profound distinction changes everything about how reality responds to your inner state. The journey to mastery begins with recognizing that what appears as an external lottery win is actually an internal state made visible. The ticket, the numbers, the celebration. These are all just physical expressions of a consciousness shift that occurred first in imagination. When you understand this principle, every aspect of life becomes available for transformation through the same mechanism. Now, I want to explore exactly how Florence instructed her students to identify and create the perfect scene for their manifestation work. The strategic decisions you make in constructing your imaginal act determine whether your practice produces remarkable results or falls flat. If you've ever noticed that focusing on how good something will feel creates more momentum than focusing on the thing itself, type in the comments, "The feeling is the secret," because acknowledging this principle is the key to understanding Florence's most powerful teaching. At this pivotal moment in understanding Florence's teaching, we arrive at the threshold between mere intellectual curiosity and genuine transformation. The knowledge you've received thus far, the mechanics of pre-sleep imagination, the multisensory approach, the focus on emotional completion, remains theoretical until you make a crucial decision. You must ask yourself honestly, will you apply this formula? Will you dare to put it to the test? This question reveals the fundamental crossroads where most seekers falter on their manifestation journey. Knowledge alone transforms nothing. You can understand these principles perfectly, nodding in agreement as each concept resonates with your intuitive wisdom. But the critical question that separates those who transform their reality from those who merely contemplate it is whether you will move beyond intellectual understanding to practical application of these powerful spiritual principles. The psychology behind this hesitation is fascinating. We often prefer to remain in the safety of theoretical understanding rather than risk disappointment through practical testing. Behind the scenes of spiritual seeking is this persistent pattern, the collection of concepts without the courage to embody them. Yet Florence knew that true wisdom comes only through lived experience, not intellectual accumulation. What makes this formula so compelling is also what makes it challenging: its simplicity. There are no complex rituals, no esoteric tools, no external authorities required. The entire mechanism exists within your own consciousness. This accessibility creates a curious paradox. The easier something is to test, the more excuses we find to avoid testing it. The revelation that changes everything comes when you recognize the pattern Florence observed repeatedly in her decades of teaching. The majority of people who encounter this teaching will never test it seriously. They'll listen, nod, perhaps even feel momentarily inspired, then promptly dismiss it as fantasy or spiritual metaphor rather than practical physics. But those who commit to consistent practice will experience the undeniable evidence of its effectiveness. This distinction creates two radically different journeys. The first path, intellectual understanding without application, leads to an expanding collection of spiritual concepts without tangible transformation. The second path, committed practice regardless of initial results, leads to a complete reimagining of what's possible in your life. The decision point between these paths isn't knowledge, but action. The mindset shift required for this work involves recognizing that the universe doesn't respond to what you know, it responds to what you embody. Florence's teaching isn't meant to be understood, but to be lived. When you transition from thinking about these principles to experiencing them through deliberate practice, you cross the threshold from spiritual theory to spiritual technology. Now, I want to share the exact protocol Florence taught her students for implementing this formula, the specific steps that transform this from abstract concept to living reality. This practical framework reveals why timing, emotional authenticity, and sensory precision matter far more than duration or effort in manifestation work. If you're ready to move beyond understanding to application, write in the comments, "I choose to practice," because declaring this commitment activates the very consciousness we've been exploring. Now, we arrive at the practical application of Florence's formula, the exact protocol she shared with her closest students. The journey begins not with complex visualization techniques, but with something surprisingly simple: preparing your physical body. The process begins with physical relaxation, allowing your body to be completely at ease as you prepare to enter the state between wakefulness and sleep, where manifestation work is most powerful. This initial step creates the foundation for everything that follows. The transformation occurs when you recognize that consciousness and body are not separate entities, but aspects of a unified field. Behind the scenes of effective manifestation is this critical insight, that physical tension creates mental resistance. By deliberately relaxing your physical form, you simultaneously release the mental barriers that block your creative power. Florence instructed her students to lie down comfortably, preferably in the position they would naturally fall asleep in. The timing of this practice isn't arbitrary, but strategic. It aligns with your body's natural rhythm of moving from conscious awareness into the subconscious realm of sleep. This decision point represents a deliberate choice to utilize a natural neurological threshold for re-imprinting your belief system. As your body settles into comfortable stillness, your breath naturally deepens and slows. This physiological shift creates a corresponding shift in brainwave patterns, moving you toward what Florence poetically called the state akin to sleep, when you're not fully awake and not fully asleep, but awareness is still alive. Modern neuroscience identifies this as the hypnagogic state characterized by theta brainwaves, which create heightened suggestibility and creative receptivity. The revelation that transforms your practice comes when you recognize what this specific state actually represents. This is not merely relaxation, but a distinct alteration in consciousness, a threshold between dimensions where the usual barriers between conscious intention and subconscious acceptance temporarily dissolve. This specific consciousness state, where the body is heavy and the mind quiet yet aware, creates the optimal condition for impressing new beliefs upon the subconscious mind. What makes this approach revolutionary is its natural alignment with your neurological architecture. You're not fighting against your cognitive systems, but working in harmony with them. The journey into this twilight consciousness requires no effort, simply the willingness to observe as your awareness shifts. You'll recognize this state by its distinctive qualities: physical heaviness, mental quietude, yet with awareness still present and observing. The mindset shift that accompanies this state is profound. The analytical, judging mind naturally recedes as you approach the threshold of sleep. This creates a window where new possibilities can be seeded without triggering the usual resistance and doubt that sabotage daytime affirmations. In this state, imagination becomes extraordinarily vivid and emotionally resonant. Precisely the conditions Florence identified as necessary for effective manifestation. Now I want to share exactly how Florence instructed her students to use this unique state once they had successfully entered it. The specific guidance she provided about constructing the perfect scene reveals why most visualization practices fail to produce tangible results. If you've ever experienced that unique threshold state where your body feels heavy, but your mind is still aware, write in the comments, "I know this," as state, because recognizing when you've entered this gateway is the first step toward using it effectively. Once you've successfully entered this receptive state, Florence revealed that the next step is surprisingly counterintuitive. While most manifestation teachers encourage elaborate visualizations, Florence discovered something radically different: the power of simplicity. Choose a simple scene that implies your desire has been fulfilled. Most people make the mistake of imagining too much. This insight transforms your entire approach to manifestation work. Behind the scenes of effective imagination practice is this critical principle: precision creates power. The more focused and specific your scene, the more concentrated its creative energy becomes. When you attempt to imagine extended scenarios or complex narratives, your mind inevitably begins to wander, introducing doubt and diffusing the emotional intensity essential for manifestation. The revelation that changes everything is learning to select one brief, clear moment that would only exist if your manifestation were complete. For the student seeking lottery winnings, it wasn't the moment of number selection or ticket purchase. It was the feeling of holding the winning ticket while hearing specific congratulations. This decisive moment represented indisputable evidence of fulfillment without unnecessary elaboration. What makes this approach transformative is how it bypasses the analytical mind's tendency to complicate the manifestation process. Your scene should be short and simple, a single frame of reality that proves your desire has manifested. Imagine it as a photograph rather than a movie, a snapshot that captures the essence of completion. The effectiveness of this technique lies in its simplicity, focusing intensely on one moment that perfectly captures the essence of your fulfilled desire rather than constructing a complex narrative. The mindset shift required for this work involves recognizing that manifestation occurs through emotional resonance, not intellectual complexity. When you distill your desire down to its essential emotional core, that one perfect moment that encapsulates everything you truly want, you create a focal point of extraordinary power. This concentrated approach allows you to generate and maintain the feeling tone of fulfillment without the distraction of unnecessary details. Florence discovered through working with hundreds of students that those who achieved the most remarkable manifestations were those who mastered this art of simplification. The journey to manifestation mastery begins with identifying your perfect scene, not the one that seems most logical or dramatic, but the one that generates the most authentic emotional response. What happens in consciousness when you focus on this single perfect moment is fascinating. Rather than diluting your creative energy across many imagined events, you concentrate it entirely on one point, creating an energetic intensity that accelerates the manifestation process. Think of it as the difference between diffused sunlight and a focused laser beam. The concentration of energy determines its transformative power. Now I want to explore exactly how Florence instructed her students to enter and experience their chosen scene. The specific guidance she provided about first-person embodiment versus third-person observation reveals why most visualization practices fail to imprint deeply. Enough on the subconscious. If you've noticed that simplifying your focus often leads to deeper experiences in meditation or visualization, write in the comments, "Simplicity is power," because recognizing this principle is essential for mastering Florence's manifestation technique. Having identified your perfect scene, Florence revealed the most critical distinction that separates effective manifestation from wishful thinking. You must enter the scene completely. Don't watch it, but live in it, feeling every sensory aspect as if it's happening now. This revolutionary approach transforms the entire manifestation process from an intellectual exercise into an embodied reality. The breakthrough insight Florence discovered through working with countless students was that most people make a fundamental mistake in their visualization practice. They position themselves as observers rather than participants. Behind the scenes of effective manifestation is this crucial shift in perspective. Instead of observing the scene as a spectator, you must fully immerse yourself within it, experiencing all sensations, emotions, and perceptions from the first-person perspective of someone for whom the desire is already real. This perspective shift creates a profound transformation in your neurological response. When you watch a scene from the outside, your brain processes it as hypothetical, interesting, but not real. But when you step inside the experience, inhabiting it from the first person perspective, your nervous system responds as if the event were physically occurring. This distinction activates entirely different neural pathways and generates authentic emotional responses that the subconscious mind recognizes as valid experience. The journey to mastery requires understanding this essential truth. Remember, the subconscious accepts what you feel, not what you hope. You are remembering, not pretending. This revelation changes everything about how you approach manifestation work. The critical distinction is emotional authenticity. Your subconscious responds to genuine feeling states, not intellectual concepts. You must feel the reality of possession, not the yearning for it. Florence's guidance illuminates the subtle yet profound difference between these two approaches. When you're pretending, there's an underlying awareness of fabrication, a subtle resistance that communicates to the subconscious that this experience isn't quite real. But when you're remembering, there's a natural ease, a sense of familiarity and certainty that bypasses resistance entirely. What happens in the quantum field when you successfully inhabit this state of remembering rather than pretending? Modern physics suggests that consciousness itself may be a fundamental force that directly interfaces with the fabric of reality. Through this lens, the authenticity of your feeling state determines its creative power. When you generate the genuine emotional signature of already having received your desire, you create a resonance pattern that reality must eventually match. This mindset revolution transforms manifestation from hoping to knowing, from seeking to finding, from chasing to embodying. The decision to approach your scene as memory rather than fantasy represents the pivotal shift that determines whether your practice will produce remarkable results or remain merely a pleasant daydream. Now let me reveal the specific guidance Florence provided about how to repeat and intensify your scene for maximum effectiveness. The unique approach she taught for entering sleep consciousness reveals why timing and repetition pattern matter far more than duration in manifestation work. If you've noticed the difference between pretending something might happen versus feeling it as already real, type in the comments, "I feel it real," because acknowledging this distinction is the key to activating the creative power of your imagination. Having established your scene and stepped fully into the first-person experience of it, Florence revealed the next crucial element of her formula: repetition with ease. You must repeat the scene gently until it feels familiar, then allow yourself to fall asleep in this state. This approach represents a profound departure from conventional manifestation techniques that emphasize effort and duration. The revelation that transforms your practice comes when you understand the quality of repetition Florence advocated. This isn't mechanical. Repetition, reciting affirmations or forcing yourself to visualize the same scene over and over with strain. Instead, it's gentle revisiting, allowing yourself to drift back into the experience naturally, as you might revisit a pleasant memory. Continue replaying your scene effortlessly until it begins to feel like a natural memory. Then drift into sleep while maintaining this state, allowing it to sink deeper into your subconscious. Behind the scenes of this process is a profound psychological principle. What feels familiar to the subconscious mind is accepted as truth. The journey from imagination to manifestation requires this transition from novel concept to accepted reality. Through gentle repetition, you're essentially naturalizing a new pattern in your consciousness, making the extraordinary feel ordinary, the miraculous feel inevitable. What makes Florence's approach revolutionary is her understanding of the sleep threshold as a doorway to the creative subconscious. Most people abandon their manifestation practice before sleep, missing the most powerful window for impressing new patterns on their deeper mind. When you carry your scene into sleep consciousness, you bypass the analytical mind's resistance entirely and communicate directly with the creative center of your being. The mindset required for this work involves a delicate balance, remaining conscious enough to maintain your scene while relaxed enough to drift toward sleep. This twilight consciousness creates the perfect conditions for deep imprinting. As your body and conscious mind surrender to sleep, the scene you've been holding becomes the final impression carried into your subconscious, the seed that will germinate in the fertile soil of deep mind. Florence prepared her students for an essential truth about this process. When you wake, nothing may seem changed, but the seed has been planted in your subconscious. This insight prevents the common pitfall of abandoning the practice too soon. There may be no immediate external evidence, but profound changes have begun invisibly as your subconscious mind accepts the new reality and begins orchestrating its manifestation. The transformation happens first at levels beyond conscious perception. Your subconscious, which interfaces directly with the quantum field of infinite possibility, begins rearranging energy patterns, establishing new neural pathways, and creating subtle shifts in your perception that will eventually materialize as external change. Understanding this invisible process requires patience and faith, not blind hope, but the mature recognition that creation follows natural gestation periods. Now I want to explore the most common mistake people make after implementing this practice, the error that cancels their creative work before it has time to manifest. Florence's guidance about what to do, or more importantly, what not to do, the morning after your practice reveals why many manifestations fail despite perfect execution of the nighttime formula. If you've ever noticed that your best ideas often come to you right before falling asleep, type in the comments, "The twilight zone is magical," because acknowledging this special state of consciousness is key to understanding its manifestation potential. Florence identified a critical pattern that separates successful manifestors from those who never see results: consistency. Most people try this once or twice and stop, saying it didn't work, but persistence is essential. This insight reveals the hidden mechanism behind manifestation success or failure. The most common cause of disappointment is simply abandoning the practice too quickly. Florence emphasized consistent repetition of the imaginal act until it becomes so natural that doubt cannot arise. This revelation transforms our understanding of the manifestation timeline. Behind the scenes of every overnight success story is a period of invisible gestation, days, sometimes weeks of consistent practice before the outer world reflects the inner shift. The psychology of manifestation requires understanding that the seed planted in consciousness follows natural laws of development. Just as you wouldn't plant a seed in your garden and dig it up the next day declaring, "It didn't work," you shouldn't abandon your inner work before it has time to materialize. The transformation happens when you recognize that persistence isn't about effort, but about maintaining a particular quality of consciousness. Each night, as you return to your scene, the experience becomes increasingly familiar and natural. What initially required concentration eventually becomes effortless, not because you're trying harder, but because you're integrating the new pattern more deeply into your identity. Florence distilled her entire teaching into one powerful directive. Assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled and persist in that assumption, for this is how your world changes. This fundamental instruction contains the essence of her approach. The journey to manifestation mastery begins with understanding that it's not the mental picture that creates, but the feeling tone that accompanies it. The fundamental instruction is to maintain the feeling state of fulfillment consistently, as this persistent assumption is what eventually reorganizes external reality to match your inner state. What makes this approach revolutionary is its recognition of feeling as the creative force behind manifestation. Most approaches focus primarily on mental imagery or affirmations, overlooking the crucial emotional component. Florence discovered that it's specifically the feeling of fulfillment, the emotional signature of already having received, that activates the creative process. The mindset required for this work involves a subtle but profound shift in identity. You're not merely visualizing a future possibility. You're stepping into an existing state where your desire is already fulfilled. This distinction transforms manifestation from hopeful wishing to conscious embodiment. You're not trying to get something you lack. You're aligning with a version of reality where you already have it. When you persist in maintaining this feeling state of fulfillment despite contrary external evidence, you demonstrate a level of faith that Florence identified as the catalyst for miraculous manifestation. This isn't blind faith based on desperation, but mature faith grounded in understanding the laws of consciousness. You persist not because you're trying to convince yourself of something untrue, but because you recognize a deeper truth beyond current appearances. Now, I want to explore the scientific understanding emerging around this process. Recent discoveries in quantum physics and neuroplasticity reveal why Florence's approach works with such remarkable consistency when properly applied. If you've noticed how your persistent focus on something eventually changes how you perceive and experience it, type in the comments. Persistence creates reality, because acknowledging this principle illuminates the fundamental mechanism of consciousness creation. The profound revelation that explains why this formula works with such mathematical precision lies in a fundamental truth about reality itself. This technique isn't magical thinking or wishful fantasy. It's based on a principle that governs all creation. Imagination is not separate from reality, but is the very creative force behind it. Far from being mere daydreaming, imagination is the primary creative power in the universe, the same force through which all manifestation occurs, from buildings to technologies to personal circumstances. This understanding represents a complete paradigm shift from conventional thinking. Most people perceive imagination as something separate from the real world, a pleasant mental diversion with no causal power. The breakthrough comes when you recognize that this division is entirely artificial. Behind the scenes of all physical creation is this hidden truth. Imagination precedes and shapes physical reality, not the other way around. Florence stated this principle with remarkable clarity. Man is all imagination. This deceptively simple statement contains an extraordinary revelation about the nature of consciousness and creation. This principle reveals that imagination is not separate from reality, but is its very source. Every human creation first existed only as an imagined concept before manifesting physically. The chair you're sitting in, the device you're watching this on, the building that surrounds you, all began as pure imagination before becoming tangible objects. The transformation in your manifestation practice occurs when you truly internalize this understanding. You're not engaging in fantasy when you imagine your desire as fulfilled. You're participating in the first and most essential phase of creation. The mindset revolution happens when you Stop seeing imagination as something apart from reality and recognize it as the causal force behind all manifestation. What makes Florence's approach revolutionary is her understanding of imagination not as wishful thinking, but as the actual substance of reality in its formative stage. Just as an architect's blueprint contains the essence of a building before construction begins, your imaginal scene contains the essence of your manifestation before it appears physically. The journey from imagination to manifestation follows the same pattern as all creation, from invisible to visible, from formless to form. Modern quantum physics has begun to validate what Florence taught decades ago. The observer effect in quantum mechanics demonstrates that consciousness itself plays a role in determining physical reality. The double-slit experiment shows that particles behave differently when observed versus unobserved, suggesting that consciousness directly interfaces with the quantum field, from which all matter emerges. This scientific perspective illuminates why Florence's technique works with such remarkable consistency when properly applied. When you imagine with feeling, you're not merely engaging in a psychological exercise. You're literally imprinting patterns on the quantum field that will eventually manifest as physical reality. You're engaging with the same creative force that shapes galaxies, just at a scale relevant to human experience. If you've ever had the experience of thinking about something and then seeing it appear in your life shortly after, type in the comments, "Imagination creates reality." Because acknowledging this connection is the first step toward consciously directing the creative force that flows through your imagination. Now I want to explore the fascinating neuroscience that validates what Florence intuited decades before technology could confirm it. When you imagine vividly, your brain and nervous system respond as if the event were actually happening. This revelation transforms our understanding of imagination from abstract concept to tangible creative force. Modern neuroscience confirms that vivid imagination triggers the same neural pathways as physical experience, explaining why deeply felt imaginal acts eventually manifest in physical reality. Brain imaging studies reveal something remarkable. When you vividly imagine an experience with emotional intensity, your brain cannot distinguish between the imagined event and actual physical experience. The same neural circuits fire, the same neurochemicals release, and your body responds identically. This biological response creates new neural pathways that literally rewire your brain to perceive and interact with reality differently. The mindset revolution occurs when you recognize this isn't metaphorical, but literal. Your brain is physically restructuring itself through your imaginative work. Each time you enter your scene with feeling, you're not just thinking about possibility. You're creating new neural architecture that makes that possibility increasingly probable in your experience. What makes Florence's teaching so transformative is her recognition of a pattern most people never notice. You are already imagining all the time. When you worry, doubt, or replay failures, you are using imagination negatively. This insight completely shifts our understanding of imagination from occasional conscious activity to constant creative force. The question is not whether you use imagination, but how you direct it. Most people unconsciously use this power destructively by imagining negative outcomes they fear rather than positive ones they desire. Behind the scenes of your daily experience is this hidden truth. Your imagination never stops creating. Every anxiety about the future, every replayed disappointment, every fearful scenario you entertain is actually imagination being used against your own interests. The journey to manifestation mastery begins with recognizing that you're already using this power constantly, just in ways that create what you don't want rather than what you do want. The transformation occurs when you take conscious control of this creative force, redirecting it from unconscious patterns of worry to deliberate patterns of fulfillment. This isn't adding something new to your experience, but reclaiming a power you're already using every moment of every day. Florence's most profound insight reveals the ultimate nature of reality itself. The world outside is nothing but yourself pushed out. Your circumstances reflect what you have accepted inwardly. This principle illuminates why your external reality so perfectly mirrors your internal assumptions. Your outer world isn't happening to you by chance or fate. It's happening from you as a perfect projection of your consciousness. This understanding transforms your relationship with everything you experience. The perception shift reveals that external conditions aren't separate from you, but are projections of your consciousness, mirroring back what you have accepted as true in your inner world. When you change the inner pattern, the outer must follow, not because you're manipulating external reality, but because you're changing the source from which it emanates. If you've ever noticed that people seem to treat you according to how you feel about yourself, type in the comments, "I am the source," because acknowledging this principle reveals the true creative center from which all your experiences flow. Now I want to explore what Florence considered the most profound principle underlying all manifestation. This revelation transforms your entire understanding of reality itself. The world outside is nothing but yourself pushed out. Your circumstances reflect what you have accepted inwardly. This isn't metaphorical language or spiritual poetry. It's a precise description of how consciousness creates experience. The breakthrough insight reveals why your external conditions so perfectly mirror your internal assumptions. This profound principle illuminates that external conditions aren't separate from you, but are projections of your consciousness, mirroring back what you have accepted as true in your inner world. Your financial circumstances, relationships, health conditions, all are externalized expressions of your inner beliefs, expectations, and emotional patterns. Behind the scenes of this principle lies a revolutionary understanding of consciousness as the foundation of reality rather than an emergent property of it. The physical world you perceive isn't an objective, independent reality happening to you. It's a responsive mirror reflecting the contents of your consciousness back to you. This understanding transforms you from victim of circumstance to creator of experience. What makes Florence's teaching so transformative is her recognition that this principle operates with perfect mathematical precision. Not sometimes, not occasionally, but always. The universe isn't random or capricious, but perfectly ordered according to laws of consciousness as reliable as gravity. Once you understand this mechanism, you recognize that changing your external reality never begins with manipulating outer conditions, but with transforming inner states. The mindset revolution occurs when you realize the profound implications of this principle for personal transformation. If your outer world reflects your inner state, then the pathway to changing anything in your experience begins with changing yourself from within. This isn't positive thinking or wishful hope, it's practical physics. When you shift your inner state, the outer must follow, not because you're influencing external reality, but because you're changing the source from which it emanates. This understanding reveals the true purpose behind Florence's lottery method. The lottery method is ultimately not about money, but about proving to yourself the law of assumption. This insight transforms the entire approach from materialistic pursuit to spiritual awakening. Financial manifestation serves as a convincing demonstration of the principle that applies equally to all aspects of life. Health, relationships, and spiritual development follow the same law. The journey to mastery begins when you recognize that Florence used the lottery example not because money is the ultimate goal, but because financial manifestation provides such tangible, undeniable evidence of these principles in action. When seemingly random numbers align with your selection, it eliminates any possibility of coincidence or confirmation bias. It proves beyond doubt that consciousness directly shapes physical reality. What makes this understanding revolutionary is how it positions the lottery manifestation not as the destination, but as the doorway, the convincing demonstration that opens you to the limitless creative potential of consciousness in every area of life. If you can manifest lottery winnings through this formula, what else might be possible? If you're beginning to recognize how this principle might be operating in your own life, creating experiences that match your inner assumptions, write in the comments, "I create what I assume." Because acknowledging this creative relationship between consciousness and reality is the first step toward conscious manifestation. Now I want to reveal what Florence considered the ultimate purpose behind this manifestation formula. Beyond lottery winnings or material abundance lies a far more profound revelation. The deeper gift is power. Power to create, transform, and live as the author of your story rather than its victim. This understanding elevates the entire practice from material acquisition to spiritual awakening. Beyond any specific manifestation lies the ultimate revelation, the discovery of yourself as a creative force capable of consciously authoring your experience rather than being subject to external circumstances. This paradigm shift transforms your entire relationship with reality. Most people move through life as responders to circumstances, reacting to events, adapting to conditions, surviving challenges. The journey to sovereignty begins when you recognize that this reactive orientation fundamentally misunderstands the creative relationship between consciousness and reality. Behind the scenes of manifestation mastery is this profound revelation. You are not at the mercy of the world. The world is an expression of your consciousness. The mindset revolution occurs when you transition from seeing yourself as a character in a story written by external forces to recognizing yourself as the author holding the pen. This transformation isn't egotistical or delusional. It's an awakening to your natural creative function as a conscious being. Florence discovered that when people realized they could manifest lottery winnings through consciousness, they experienced something far more valuable than money. They experienced liberation from victimhood. What makes this understanding revolutionary is how it repositions you within the field of creation. You're not a passive observer of reality, but an active participant in its ongoing creation. Every assumption you hold, every feeling you cultivate, every state you occupy becomes the template from which your experience is continuously formed. This recognition grants a level of creative authority that transforms every aspect of life. Florence's ultimate revelation illuminates the sacred nature of imagination itself. Your imagination is the workshop of creation, where every prayer is answered and the seedbed of your future. This final understanding reveals imagination as the sacred space where all creation begins, the meeting point between human consciousness and infinite possibility, where prayers are fulfilled and futures determined. The transformation occurs when you recognize imagination not as fantasy separate from reality, but as reality in its formative stage. This sanctification of the imaginative faculty elevates it from entertainment to sacrament, a divine creative function through which you participate in shaping the fabric of existence itself. The journey to manifestation mastery begins with honoring imagination as the holy ground where human consciousness interfaces directly with the infinite field of possibility. Behind the scenes of this understanding is a profound spiritual revelation. What religions have called prayer, what mystics have called meditation, what artists have called inspiration, all are variations of the same creative process Florence identified in her manifestation formula. The creative power doesn't come from outside, but wells up from within, from the imagination, properly directed and infused with feeling. Now I want to explore the mistakes most people make when attempting this formula, the subtle errors that prevent manifestation despite seemingly correct application of the technique. If you've begun to recognize the creative power of your imagination in shaping your life experiences, type in the comments, "I am the author," because acknowledging your creative authority is the first step toward conscious manifestation. As we reach this moment together, I hope you feel something shifting within you, a recognition of the creative power that's been yours all along. Florence Scovel Shinn didn't share this formula to create dependency or to suggest that abundance comes from outside yourself. She revealed it to awaken you to your own sovereign creative nature. Tonight, as you lie down to sleep, you have a choice. You can continue moving through life as you always have, Or you can test this principle for yourself, not with skepticism or doubt, but with the innocent curiosity of someone discovering a natural law for the first time. Remember, Florence's student didn't approach this as a desperate attempt to win money. He approached it as an experiment in consciousness, a personal journey of discovery. If something within you has resonated with this message, if you felt those moments of recognition where a deeper part of you whispered, "I already knew this," then our connection here wasn't accidental. You were drawn to this teaching because you're ready to step more fully into your creative power. I'd love for you to join me on this continuing exploration of Florence's most powerful teachings. Subscribe to our channel if you feel called to deepen this journey together. Each video unveils another aspect of the creative process that Florence shared only with her closest students. If this message found its way to your consciousness at exactly the right moment, let me know by writing in the comments. The timing is divine. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to see to begin their own journey of discovery. And if you found value in our time together, a simple like on this video helps others find this teaching when they're ready for it, when their consciousness is prepared to receive what Florence understood about our creative nature. There's another video right here that reveals Florence's technique for healing through the same creative principle we've explored today. Click and continue this journey with me as we explore how the same law that manifests abundance also restores wholeness in every aspect of life.